Welcome back to Questing Beast. I'm Ben. Today we're taking a look at a notebook, and not just any notebook. This is a notebook that I regard to be the best notebook for dungeon masters that I have ever used. And that is especially the case if you are into old school D&D. There's a whole bunch of features in here that fit perfectly with what old school D&D dungeon masters tend to need and what they tend to want when they are running games at the table. We're going to go through all of those features, and I'll give you my pitch as to why it is my favorite notebook. As always, if you want to check it out for yourself, a link to it will be right down in the description below. All right, taking a look inside the book, we can see here that it is produced by the company Leuchtturm 1917. I think that's how you say it. Basically means lighthouse in German. This is German made, which is a very good sign. It tends to have very good construction and excellent paper quality as well. The actual model of the notebook is that it is a master-sized A4 Plus notebook. If you look up Master A4 Plus with this brand name, you'll find the notebook that I'm talking about here. And the first thing that you're going to notice right away when you look at this thing is that it is absolutely huge. This is A4 Plus, which means it is slightly larger than an A4 sized piece of paper. For comparison, here is a letter-sized piece of paper, which people in America will be more used to. As you can see here, it is maybe a solid inch or more taller and slightly wider than this letter-sized piece of paper. And if you have a lot of A4 pieces of paper because you're in the UK or in the European Union, it'll actually fit inside this book and you can fold it up and you won't see any of the paper poking out the sides because it is slightly bigger than that, which is really, really big. So that right away you're going to ask, why would you want a notebook that is this huge? There is definitely disadvantages to it. Probably the biggest disadvantage that I should point out right away is that it's just a bit bulky to carry around. It's the size of a small laptop almost. This isn't a really big deal for me since I typically carry a backpack where I go and I just slip it right in there and it's not a big deal. But for someone who wants something a little bit easier to carry, maybe you don't have as big of a bag, that could be a problem. But what is the advantage of this size? You have an enormous canvas to work with. Actually, one of the reasons why I got interested in a notebook this large was I was talking to a person at the Page convention, the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, and he was talking to me about his notebook and how he started out with one that was fairly small, and he realized that he could create an entire adventure on a spread of this rather small notebook. But it only lasted for a session or two. But then he graduated to a slightly larger notebook and he realized he could get 3 or 4 sessions out of it. And so he was thinking of getting one even larger so we could have these very long adventures run out of a single spread. And that's exactly what this can do. So for example, over here, as I showed you before, this is an adventure that I did for my adventure collection, Summer's End. I later cleaned it up quite a bit. But you can see there's an entire adventure right here. This is half the size, less than half the size of what you get on a full page spread here. You could do an entire level of a mega dungeon on a spread like this, including notes surrounding all of the different rooms, indicating what they were, and run it for many, many sessions without ever having to flip the page. For me, that's huge. Another big advantage of having this really big space to work on is that you can have a lot of ideas jammed onto a single page or onto a spread. I like that personally. I like all of my ideas jumbled and compressed together because then they start bouncing off of each other. It's easier for me to look things up and I can combine and rework ideas when I see them all pressed up next to each other. I don't know, it activates my creativity for some reason. Here's an example of a page that I was working on just to test out the book really. You see I have some sketches of different ideas for possible dungeons, some notes, and I started drawing a little dungeon down here. I could easily run this dungeon without too much trouble if I just added a few notes in the rooms indicating what they were. By the way, I'm planning on uploading these pages as I write them over to my supporters on Patreon if you want to check that out. Now, another really big point in this book's favor is the binding. It is all stitch bound and it is done so well that this book lies flat. You flip it open to a page and that's what you get. You don't have to touch it. It will not close on you. That's hugely important for me when I am running games. If I'm running games using notes that I've written down in a notebook, I do not want to have one hand that is dedicated to holding the notebook or pressing it open while I'm running the game. I want to have both hands free. I want a nice big display, a control panel, if you will, where I can see all of my notes and run directly off of it. The ability to lie flat and having stitch binding is not something that you can always count on when it comes to notebooks. There's plenty of them out there that are glue bound and it becomes a huge pain, at least for me. Next up, we have the fact that it is a dot grid. That's something that's becoming more and more popular, I think, among notebooks, but it works really well for Game Master notebooks because with a dot grid, you can easily sketch out dungeons, as I did earlier on right here. Everything fits into that grid really nicely. And you can also do writing while keeping all of your lines straight, but the dots really easily fade into the background. You don't really think about them or notice them while you're running games or while you're writing. They aren't distracting as having actual graph paper would. At least that's how it works for me. The next feature that I think is really important is the number of pages. This is a thick book. It has 235 pages, I believe, which is a lot more than you typically see for notebooks. Again, that could be a disadvantage for some people because it is so large that does make it heavy, but for me, it is actually an advantage. And the main reason is really more an aesthetic one than anything else. It makes me feel like a wizard. I just really like the experience of taking this big old book and flopping it open on the table and just slowly scrawling my way through it and filling up all of these giant pages. The book is heavy, it's monumental. It makes the process of taking DM notes feel like it's a lot more important than maybe it really is. It feels like this arcane tome. And for me, that's just a big plus. Now, there's a number of other features that I want to get to, but first, a quick shout out to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by our longtime sponsor, Into the AM, and their recent release, their Legacy Stretch Denim Jeans, which I think they really hit out of the park. I have the hardest time finding jeans that fit. I often go through multiple pairs before I find one that is even okay. So I was really shocked when they sent me an early copy of these jeans, and they fit perfectly on their first try. They are really soft and they have a little bit of a stretch to them, which makes them extremely comfortable no matter what I'm doing. They quickly became the pair of jeans that I wear every day. As usual, if you use my link down in the description below, you will get 10% off of their entire web store on top of any other sales or discounts they might have, like the discount that they give you if you buy multiple pairs of jeans. Thanks again to Into the AM for sponsoring, and now let's get back to the video. Now, the next feature I want to talk about is the fact that it has built-in pagination. This isn't really a huge deal, but it is surprising to me the number of journals that don't have that. And what's nice is that this book comes with a built-in table of contents right here. So as you fill out your pages, you can very easily note down your page number, and it has a nice long line to describe everything that's on there if you want to organize your notes really easily. The paper quality itself is also very nice, which I hear is quite typical for German manufacturing. It's very smooth and it is fairly opaque. You can't see through it all that well, and it feels very sturdy, like it's not going to rip or get torn out very easily. I've heard from some people that it works pretty well with fountain pens, but I am not a fountain pen person, so I really can't verify that. You might want to check with other people to be sure if that's something that you use. Next up, it has not one, but 2 ribbons. You know, I like my ribbons. What's fun about this book is that it almost reminds me of the construction of a really high quality OSR adventure, except that it's all blank and ready for you to fill in. Not only does it have 2 ribbons, they are in 2 different colors, which allows you to easily mark 2 different parts of your book. And of course, it adds to the wizard tome aesthetic, which I like. Now, at the very back of the book, there is another great feature, which is that it has this nice big pocket. And of course, this is great for Dungeon Masters because we are always having loose papers lying around. Like, for example, here is a Traveler character sheet that I've been working on for my Traveler campaign that I am playing in actually with my local group. But of course, you can put whatever you want in here. You can add more notes. You can put in handouts. Handouts are really big, right? If you have an adventure that you're running, you can put all the things you need to give to players, slide it right in here, and then hand it out without it ever falling out of your book. And as a bonus, the book also comes with this nice little page of stickers, which you can use to put on the front of your book if you want to label it. And it has these long stickers to put on the spine if you want to write on that as well. Just a neat little feature. I do wish the pocket was maybe slightly wider, and that's just because A4 pages are a bit narrower proportionally than letter-sized pages. So here, this is a letter-sized page, and as you can see, it goes all the way in. If you squeeze it a little bit, then it's fine. You barely get past the crease right there, and it works, but it is a bit of a tight fit. Going back to the cover again, you can see it is a nice hardback with a elastic ribbon to hold it shut. Having it be a hardback is really essential because it allows you to hold it open, say when you're sitting down, like on your lap, and you can write on it quite easily without it flopping around everywhere. Now, I should point out that this is the large page count version. There is a slim version of this that has, I think, about half of the page count if you want something a bit lighter. So that is an option if you don't want something quite as hefty as this big guy. So that's my look through the Leuchtturm A4 Plus Master Notebook. Why do I think this is the perfect notebook for old school game masters, at least for most of them? It has a lot of features that you can find in other notebooks, but I haven't run into any notebooks that combine all of them together. And that is the really large page size, the high page count, the stitched binding so it lies flat, the fact that it has the dot grid, the fact that it has 2 ribbons, it has the pagination, it has the pocket for putting my notes. It has all of the different features that I would want if I was creating a notebook for running Dungeons and Dragons. It's fun to hold, it's fun to write in. I think it looks cool. It's one of the most enjoyable products that I have bought for myself in quite a long time. So is this the right notebook for you? Let me know down in the comments below what your preferences are. And if you want to check this out, as always, check out the link down in the description below. Remember to like and subscribe to help this channel grow, and you could join us over on Patreon if you want to help support the channel and also see pages from my notebook as I sketch things out. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.